Hello and welcome everyone to the Capital Mind podcast. If you'd like to know more about us, visit capitalmind.in, and if you'd like to invest with us, do visit capitalmindwealth.com.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as the basis for investment decisions. Clients of Capital Mind may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Hello everyone, this is Aditya and welcome to the Capital Mind podcast. Today we'll be talking about the Karvy fiasco, and as usual I have the very special guest Deepak Shenoy. Welcome Deepak.
Hi Aditya and hi everyone.
So Deepak, over the past 1 year, we saw a lot of brokers getting banned. So there was Amrapali and they misappropriated around 200 crores. And then there was Fair Wealth Brokers, they did around 88 crores. And then there was Casa Finvest, which was around 40 crores. But to be honest, I wasn't shocked when I came to know about these defaults because these were small and shady brokers anyways. If someone had come up to me saying my broker Amrapali cheated on me, I would have simply told him, dude, why the hell would you keep a demat account with such shady brokers? Why did you not go with a pan-India player such as Zerodha or maybe Karvy? But the Karvy fiasco is really shocking. They were everywhere. They were even into wealth management. So there was an illusion of quality and genuineness. What do you think, Deepak?
You know, Aditya, the more you look at this, you kind of realize that the system itself has been favoring a lot of entities that have done a certain set of practices which are probably no longer kosher. Now, there's a reason why broking has had a bad name in a way. You know that in India, when you earn float income, you can put your money, you can give someone your money, and then they will earn interest on that money. So a bank can do that, an NBFC perhaps can do that. The only other person who can earn money out of float is actually a broker. So brokerages, you can give them your money, you can give them the money, they put it inside some kind of a pooled bank account, and if there is any interest to be earned out of it due to the margins you have to place with them, though that interest can be earned by the broker instead of by you. Therefore, this is actually a different a float because you don't earn any interest on the balances you keep with your broker, but at the same time you can withdraw it whenever you want, you can add more whenever you want, and so on. So this wasn't enough as an income source. Obviously, brokerage is there is this float income. Some brokers have in the long ages have been saying that, listen, we buy stocks for our customers. Those stocks can are held with us. And for a very long time, what they used to do was keep the stocks in their pool account. Now, pool account is simply a place where when you buy stocks, you can the broker will get the stocks delivered into his pool account.
Okay.
And then he will transfer from the pool account to your individual demat accounts, right?
Okay.
So this was earlier a very loosely held regulation where it said, okay, listen, the broker can choose to transfer or not. Based on whether he wanted. If the customer, of course, wanted to take the stocks, then he would take it back. So what would happen is some of the brokers would keep the securities in the pool account. These pool accounts started to grow to a very large size, and over time, over a fairly large period of time, the pool account itself was large enough where what some of these brokers were doing, and I'm not sure if Karvy was doing this, but assuming that some customers, some of the entities were, that they were keeping the securities in the pool account and taking a loan on the pool account. So they would pledge the entire pool account, and some NBFC would give money, and the brokers would take that money at say 12% and then lend it as margin money to their customers at 18%.
And this was legal?
This is legal because what would happen is they would tell the customers, listen, you can buy today, sell after 5 days. The securities don't move from the pool account to your demat. They sit in the pool account. You don't pay fully for them because the full payment is coming from a loan from the NBFC which is on the pool account. And then that money is used, let's say, so for instance, if I buy a shares worth 1 lakh, I'll pay 10,000 rupees, 90,000 rupees is my margin money.
Yes.
That margin money is an interest bearing money. So I pay 18% on it. So 1.5% 5% per month. Now, if I hold it for about 5 days, I'll pay a certain fee, let's say 600 or 700 rupees, and I expect to make that much when I sell it. So if I buy on Monday, I'll sell on Friday. Now, Karvy actually offered this service of buying on Monday and selling on Friday. So obviously, they were doing some kind of financing at the pool level and taking these loans on these pool accounts. What's bad about this is that the loan is on the pool account. It isn't actually to individual customers, although individual customers are taking the loan. Margin financing by the broker through this method doesn't actually help, because you should actually know who the eventual receiver of this margin funding is, and therefore the over leverage of any customer can be identified at a systemic level, which is not available in some of these cases. The other problem was that a default was actually a broker problem, but then it could percolate into all the customers who are holding securities in the pool, because the broker default would mean that the NBFC would try to forcibly sell shares in the pool account, and then anybody who has shares in the pool gets damaged. Now, who are in the pool? If it were a person who was saying buy today and sell on Friday, or buy on Monday, sell on Friday, and he defaulted, he doesn't care if his securities are sold, because it's a default. He wants his securities sold so that the money can be returned.
Right.
But there are lots of people who would buy shares and they would not even know shares have not been transferred into their accounts. It's sitting in this pool account and their shares have been margined. Now, when I say margined, it means the NBFC actually owns a pledge on them. Why would a broker do this? Because NBFCs will not provide you a 100% loan, right? They will provide you a loan for 100 rupee loan. They will say, give me a security worth 200 rupees. Now, you want to margin your own security. You want to buy a 1 lakh security with 10,000 rupees in cash. You actually want effectively a 90% loan, or a 40%, 70%, 80% loan. You want a high loan. So you're not going to accept a 50% loan. That's not leverage enough for you. So what they do is, it's a little bit of a shady practice. A lot of brokers will keep a lot of shares, that means even of people who haven't asked for margins, in the pool account, simply saying, listen, if you want the shares back, we'll give it to you. So what's the big deal? So people used to keep them in the pool account. Now, this practice had been specifically banned by SEBI in 2016. So what they said was, listen, if the shares have come in, you need to transfer it forcefully into the customer account. This is a problem, because now you have a situation where loans have been given at the pool level, margin loans, and this loan cannot immediately be repaid. It will create a lot of consternation. So a lot of brokers use innovative techniques. So they would create a client account where they would transfer these securities. Tell customers that, listen, your shares are there, but we'll transfer them to your pool or your demat account whenever you want. But they weren't sitting in the actual pool. They would sit in one of these quasi accounts that were created. Those Karvy was guilty of doing that. They had an account like this where they had certain securities of customers which were not a designated pool account. It was just an account on which a loan was taken. The beneficiary of this loan turns out to be a few Karvy entities, including Karvy Realty Limited. This is an illegal practice, in the sense you cannot take client securities, pledge it and take money for one of your own companies and group companies. That's what SEBI has found. And here's what is interesting. SEBI didn't find this themselves. NSE did a spot inspection, found out there was such an account. This account was not even reported as a broker's own account. You're supposed to report all your demat accounts to NSE. They found out there was one extra account, that all these things were going on, where after 2016, a lot of securities have been transferred to it, from it, unpledged, pledged, bunch of things created, a loan created on top of it, and the loan proceeds have been used by Karvy related companies, and this is prima facie illegal. So NSE then went and said, listen, we are going to appoint a forensic auditor, but please SEBI take care of this now. SEBI then acted in an ex parte decision, which means they didn't even ask Karvy to come and defend themselves. They said, boss, this is so serious, we have to take action before we ask Karvy to defend itself. That particular demat account, it's not a pool account, it's actually a sub account. That is frozen now, which means no more shares from that account can be sold. It can only be transferred to the underlying client's own demat accounts if the share has been fully paid for. Which means if my shares are there and I've actually fully paid for those shares, then CDSL will be allowed to transfer them to my demat account. But otherwise, It will not be allowed. And the rest of the functioning of Karvy is okay, except that Karvy cannot onboard new customers now. This is the problem because of one more thing. There is this concept called unpaid security. So a lot of brokers would earlier say, listen, your shares have come into the pool account. You could say, listen, I'll pay for it tomorrow because you got 24 hours to pay for them. And then you could vanish. So these shares would then be paid for by Karvy from its own pocket, effectively. And they would be sitting in the pool account as unpaid securities. So when a lot of companies, when a lot of regulations started to come in 2016 onwards, saying that pool account cannot have securities of customers, there was one loophole. Unpaid securities could still sit in the pool account. So a lot of brokers simply started calling these securities unpaid securities.
Even if they were paid for.
Even if they were paid for. And there was no easy way to verify that payment had been fully received for them, because you could always structure as the payment coming in, oh, he owed me for something else, it's a balance sitting in his account, all that stuff. This gave the opportunity for a broker like Karvy to say, or like Karvy or any broker really, to say that some securities are unpaid for. And therefore, what the main interesting thing that happened with this new regulation, which started October 1st of 2019, by the way, is that you could no longer classify something as an unpaid security and make it sit in the pool account. What SEBI said was, shut down the pool account. Pehle to. Because I don't know what all you have pledged in this, shut it down. जो pledge है उसको unpledge करो, खत्म करो, make this account free, create a new pool account. Then, in this current pool account, you have a bunch of unpaid securities. Put them into another account called unpaid securities account.
Okay.
Where shares can remain only for 5 days. After 5 days, if they're still unpaid, please sell them or transfer them to your own demat account or whatever, but don't keep them there for more than 5 days. So the other point was, they said that the client has given me securities and I have taken margin against those securities. What's the problem? So well, you create a separate account called demat account called client margin securities. In that margin securities, you can take a loan. But there you have to now tell me and identify which client has how much out of that margin. So if you have 1 lakh worth of shares and 5 customers giving 20,000 shares each, you have to say that 5 customers have 20,000 rupee shares each. I have taken margin of 1 against 1 lakh worth of shares. When you do this, the whole old business model goes for a 6, because the idea was to take current client money, which the client hasn't placed as margin, and put them into a pool account and take it as a bunched pool and call something unpaid, call something else. The whole model breaks. So now when these new rules start to come in, how do you adjust against this? You will start moving things around. You'll say, oh, let's create a new account and move some stuff into that account. In that process, that particular customer is me only as a different entity. So as a broker, I could then try and get a pledge on that account and try some stunts around it, because I can't do the old business model anymore.
Basically doing shady stuff.
If many brokers will not admit to doing shady stuff because they don't think this is shady. This has been a business model for 20 years. They don't think it's shady. They think it's perfectly fine, but it's not. It's obviously not, which is why SEBI banned the practice. But therefore, what we've got now is a situation where Karvy is saying, listen, even in its letter, it has now said, oh, some new regulations come, we are trying our best to adhere to them. What is trying our best? So somebody tells you, don't kill people. Is it like you'll try to adhere to it from next time? You just don't, it's just stop doing it. But obviously, that's not what Karvy did. And in this case, the suffering people are customers of Karvy, some of whom are impacted directly because their shares are stuck in these pool/semi-pool accounts, where when they look at their portfolio on the Karvy website, everything's fine.
Actually, that is my question. That's a very important point, because I am pretty sure many people would not know this. Suppose if I buy some shares and after T+2 days, when I go to my broker's portal, the shares may be present in my portfolio, but that doesn't necessarily means that they have been transferred to my demat account. So is there a possibility that after T+2 days, my portfolio shows that those shares are there, but they haven't been transferred to my demat account, they're still lying to a pool account? Is that possible?
Yes. In fact, in a lot of brokers, I don't know about Karvy specifically, I've heard this is the case with Karvy, is that when you buy shares, they go sit in your pool account, they don't transfer it unless you ask them to. This is illegal and has been addressed many times recently. But what they do is they, in a way, abuse the demat facility power of attorney that you have given them.
Yes.
In a way, because they say that power of attorney gives them the right to transfer to your demat account or from your demat account at will. You don't even realize when shares have moved from your demat account, which is why recently CDSL and NSDL, which are the effective depositories,
Yes.
are sending SMSs every time a
Yes.
debit is made. That means people have taken things out of your demat account. To save that, these guys don't even transfer into your demat account at all.
Oh.
Because you will now know, whenever your shares move out of your demat account, you will call up the broker and say, why have you done that? So they don't even let the shares come in, and in their own internal interface, which when you go to a Karvy website or brokerage website,
They will show it.
They will say that it is there in your demat account, but you won't know how to know. So what you have to do now is you have to go to something called the CDSL or NSDL
Okay.
and get something called a CAS, a common account statement.
Okay.
This is a monthly statement. At the end of every month, you will get it. You have to log into in CDSL. There's a page you can search for CAS, e-CAS. It's called electronic CAS,
Okay.
which will usually come once a month to your email ID, but you can go and get it from any of these sites. The way the idea in CDSL works is you have a CDSL broker ID. In your demat account, it is identified by broker ID and client ID, BOID it is called effectively. So if you add the both, as in if you say your broker ID is 12085591,
Okay.
and then your client account is 5600 something. So 12055091, and then add the digits of your client ID. That will become like a 16-digit number. So one after the other. That is something called a BOID. If you give your BOID, your PAN and your date of birth, you'll get an OTP from CAMS.
Okay.
And then you can download your, from CDSL. You can download your CDSL common account statement. This statement actually specifies how much securities you have in the depository demat account. So don't trust what Karvy is telling you. Please go and get your common account statement from CDSL or NSDL, whoever your broker is. You'll get it from your contract notes where your demat ID is. If you find that whatever shares are supposed to exist in your demat account, which means you bought them maybe years ago, months ago, even a few days ago, more than 2 or 3 days ago, those shares aren't sitting. So, of course, you'll get your cash only once a month. So, right now, you'll only get like October end kala cash.
Okay.
Or September end wala cash. But you can see when I bought shares on August and they don't reflect in my September
And
cash,
definitely there's something.
there's something wrong. So, you can do this for any broker in the country.
It's good that you brought the power of attorney thing, and I believe a lot of people, including me, maintain multiple demat accounts. So for example, I maintain 2 demat accounts. One is for investment purposes and one is for simply trading. And the problem with me is that I don't check my investment demat account regularly. Like some stocks I have just bought and kept and I have not checked. Actually, this scares me because if I have signed my power of attorney, have I given the right to my broker to move shares out of my demat account without my permission just because I've already signed power of attorney?
Yes. So the short answer to your question is yes, because the idea, the way the system works is when you sell shares from your demat, you sell some online tool, you sell it. You get 24 hours to deliver the shares.
Okay.
In the earlier days, you had to give a depository instruction slip signed by you and all holders to your broker. The broker would then submit this to the depository. Then the depository would transfer it from them to the exchange, clearing corporation, who would then further transfer it to whoever was supposed to be receiving the shares.
For every transaction.
For every transaction. Now, since you don't have to do this anymore, why don't you have to do this? Because you give a power of attorney to your broker saying, "Acha, to aap kar lo yaar." So now he can debit, your broker can debit your demat account whenever he wants.
Oh.
Because the power of attorneys are like that. They're saying, listen, yes, agreed. They say that you can only do it if I have actually done a trade.
Yes.
But the power of attorney allows him to debit for other reasons also. For instance, you owe him some money and you have not paid. some fees or something like that. He can then take your shares and sell them.
Yeah.
He retains that right. Therefore, he has taken an unconditional kind of power of attorney. So it should be verified. And now they can invent paperwork saying, oh, I took the shares because of that reason, not because of this reason, not because we thought you owed us cash, but you don't really owe us cash. Don't worry, we'll give you your shares back. Don't say you won't give a power of attorney, because none of you have the capability of going to your broker physically every time you sell a share with a depository relationship. And remember, your share signatures must match. If they don't match, you will be a defaulter. You have to have the signatures match. Every single transaction has to be vetted at a per, say, script level on a daily basis. Many online brokers won't even allow you to do this operation because, come on, I mean,
the transaction cost will definitely go up.
I mean, they will not be able to service you with this kind of charge. This concept of not giving a power of attorney is completely unworkable. You have to give it. At best, we can hope that some brokers respect it, and many brokers do. A brokerage system is largely based on trust.
Okay. So a quick question, Deepak. As you mentioned that the shares have been pledged with some NBFCs and bank. So suppose I'm the unfortunate one whose shares lie in that pool account, Karvy's pool account, which has been pledged to some bank or NBFC. So what should I do right now? Like, one thing is, you suggested that maybe people can change the broker. Suppose your demat account is with Zerodha and my demat account is with HDFC. So am I in more safer hands because my broker, which is HDFC, is also a bank? So two questions for you. First one, what should I do? Second, when I try to find another broker, is it necessary that I have to go to a broker which is also a bank?
So I think to answer the second question first,
Okay.
the broker being a bank will not make any difference to your life. Have you ever tried to recover anything from a bank? It is going to take you years, because if the bank decides it doesn't pay, nobody can make it and force it to pay. And this is across the system, across all banks. If the bank decides it doesn't want to pay you, then you will take months and years to recover your money. Most online brokers, at least the smart ones, the good ones, the ones that seem to do things honestly, including even people have been saying Zerodha, but Zerodha's actually never even used a pool account. They transfer the shares directly from the exchange to your demat account without the pool account coming in the middle in a lot of cases. So they actually they try to remove themselves from this practice. So there is no fear at this point of misuse at brokers like
Discount brokers
like Zerodha. We haven't seen it with an Upstocks. We haven't seen it with many others. There are no such things that you would notice, and the red flags have to be taken care of. Now, if you tell me that HDFC is better or ICICI is better just because it has a bank, that makes absolutely no sense.
No, some people say you have to pay higher brokerage to HDFC, but you can sleep peacefully.
I don't think you can, because if an HDFC employee has fraud and he does this, who is going to pay you back anything? I can guarantee you this. Nothing will happen. You can complain. You can go to SEBI. And there are a lot of complaints against ICICI and HDFC also on SEBI. And routinely, such complaints will come against all sorts of brokers. You can see the number of complaints against them in the NSC, because NSC actually has an online link that tells you the number of customers and number of complaints.
Okay.
And you can see a lot more customer complaints against people who are banking with such companies, because everything is fungible, right? Your money can be taken out from a bank account anytime. So if they decide to charge you a fee and hit your bank account, you can't do anything. Whereas if the broker and bank account are separate, they can't just charge your bank account whenever they want. You have to transfer money to them if they have to. So the thing is actually delineated and separated. Point is that it isn't any safer to have an account with a bank versus with a brokerage like Zerodha. And I am biased because I know the people at Zerodha, and actually I am only biased towards them because I know the way they work. And it is actually more honest than a lot of bank brokers who continue to use pools. So if you're using a pool, that's going to be T+3 before you receive the shares. And that process honestly has discrepancies and flaws. It's not a great argument to say just go to banks, or this is just fearful nonsense that banks are used to cheating and conning people for a long time, and they are good at it. So just changing a broker because you think that a Karvy has hurt you and going to a bank level DP, I don't think it's going to make any difference.
Okay. So yeah, and the first question, Deepak, if I am the unfortunate one and my share is lying in that pool account, so what should I do? What is my recourse?
So I would suggest this. If you're lying in a demat account, go create a new account, the Karvy would have given you a depository instruction slip, DIS slip, give it to Karvy and tell them, please transfer out of my account into my new account. It will take you 2-3 days, but you have to take action now. If your shares are sitting in a pool account, immediately send a query by email, not by phone. Follow it up with a phone request as well. Please give me back my shares. If they don't give you back your shares, not to worry. There is an investor protection fund. If Karvy goes into default, that investor protection fund should be more than enough to take care of ensuring that these shares come back to you, though it will take some time. If yours is in the pool account and you haven't taken a loan on it, that means you haven't done a margining on it, then transfer the share back to your demat account and then transfer it out into another demat. I'm just saying get out of Karvy right now because given the fact that SEBI has made an ex-parte interim order, which means they didn't even let Karvy be heard. They said, boss, let's do this before this damage gets worse. It is your job to protect your interest and move your money out of Karvy. This does not hurt Karvy like it hurts a bank. Because when you take out money from a bank, it hurts it because it has to now fund itself from another source. When you've given your shares to Karvy, you aren't funding Karvy. Karvy is just a placeholder that holds your securities. He should not be funding himself by using your securities. So when you take your securities back from him, by your doing this, you are not going to hurt them if they are doing the right thing. And if they are doing the right thing, they will willingly and very happily give you your shares or allow it to be transferred out and prove themselves so that you'll transfer it back another day. Don't sell them on Karvy platform. Don't sell shares on Karvy platform. Because when you sell, they will automatically debit your shares, move them to the pool, sell them, take the money, and then you have to wait for the money to come to you, which can take 6 or 7 days. And if they are really in trouble, they will not be able to pay you the money. So don't sell shares on the Karvy platform. Transfer them to your demat, move from the demat to another demat of another broker, and then you can do whatever you want, sell, buy.
So you talked about the investor protection fund. So when we did the podcast on the PMC debacle, you said that the DICGC insures every depositors up to 1 lakh. That is the amount of insurance we have. So now, what is the case with investor protection fund? Like, to what amount? What is the quantum of insurance that a demat account holder gets?
So the idea of a demat account insurance is largely about the fact that your broker misuses or abuses. It's a protection fund, which means that if you lose money due to broker fraud or default, not your fault. It's the broker's fault that caused you to do this. The investor protection fund should pay for it. It will do so in case of systemic defaults, but it will take years. So if it goes to the investor protection fund, please guarantee that nothing will happen within at least 2 years. If NSC and the SEBI system is smart, they will try to do it faster than that. But let's hope that this matter does not go there.
True. So lastly, Deepak, let's come to markets. We have come across information that Karvy has pledged shares on a client's shares and took loan. I want to know what happens to these NBFCs and banks who gave the loan. For example, ICICI has lent around 875 crores. Axis Bank has lent 25 crores.
So what's interesting about this whole situation is we don't know where this whole thing about banks has come from as a bad thing. I mean, a lot of loans could have been given in business itself.
Okay.
But when you pledge shares and provide that as collateral, banks are not allowed to provide more than a certain amount. I think it's 10 lakh rupees or 20 lakh rupees for a loan that is backed by collateral, which is why you find all this pledging stuff doesn't happen to banks. It happens to NBFCs, to mutual funds, because those are the entities that are allowed to lend purely against the collateral of shares. Now, I don't think banks have lent large amount of money against these illegal practices of pledging shares or client securities without their knowledge. Even with their knowledge, it would be an NBFC that provides a loan, not a bank. if that is the case, then anybody who's at risk today is the NBFC who gave a loan against that pool account. We don't know who that NBFC is, and we'll find out soon enough. But that NBFC is the one that might be in trouble. It may not be any other bank or loan, which may be actually secured with different sets of assets, which may not necessarily be impacted by whatever's happened. So I don't think the bank's exposure should be taken as critical here. It could, of course, get critical if Karvy becomes bankrupt, but I don't think Karvy is or will become bankrupt because of this case. And that they have sister entities. They've said there's only 100 odd crores remaining they will pay. Let's hope that comes true. A lot of people have said a lot of things in the recent past and nothing has happened. So let's hope that Karvy doesn't fall into that same bandwagon and that they do pay and they remain a going entity. And if anybody is at trouble here, it's the NBFCs that have lent against the stocks, which suddenly they find out weren't supposed to have been pledged in the first place.
Okay, so that's it, Deepak. That was the last question. And thanks a lot for your time. We had a wonderful discussion and I hope our listeners enjoyed it as well.
I hope so too. So do write in at capitalmind_in on Twitter. I'm at Deepak Shinoy. Aditya is at Astute Aditya. We're looking for feedback. Love to hear your questions. Please do understand that we are only providing an opinion and it is not something that is legally binding or advice that is to you. So please take your action based on the information you have. Don't just blindly follow us. But at this point, I think the Karvy situation demands action of every person who is a customer to Karvy. So do consider taking action wherever necessary.
Thanks a lot, Deepak.